Welcome to the very first episode of the Embolden Co podcast, the show where we amplify voices, share stories, and give you the courage to walk boldly in the purpose you were created for. I'm your host, Anthony Ravisto, and I'm excited to kick things off with a conversation that will inspire you to step into your calling and embrace your full potential. Our very first guest is Dr. Matt Altman, a board-certified family medicine physician and founder of Rooted Supplements. Today, he's here to talk about Citrus Fit Electrolytes, a clean hydration formula designed to support performance, recovery, and overall health. Whether you're an athlete, a busy professional, or just looking to feel better and perform at your best, this episode is for you. Let's dive into today's conversation with Dr. Matt Altman and start this journey together. All right, so Dr. Matt, excited to be chatting with you today just about some of the awesome things you have going on and coming in the near future. Wanted to just start out with a couple questions, but first off, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate being here on Embolden's podcast. That's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you. So wanted to start out the conversation. Just if you could kind of tell us a bit about your journey from becoming an MD to founding Elite Family Medicine and now to this place of launching Rooted Supplements. What inspired you to create Rooted Supplements? I know one of your main products is going to be a Citrus Fit Electrolyte. So was there like maybe a personal aha moment or need you saw in your patients that led you to that place? Just kind of wanted to get to know your journey a little bit of kind of what led you to this place and where we're at now.
Yeah, so I was trained in Houston in medical school, went up and did some family medicine training, ended up in something no one's ever heard of called environmental medicine, which kind of set me down this path where I was looking at how our environment as a whole impacts our health. And after a short time out of my training, started this clinic with my amazing wife, Sarah, kind of with a vision of looking at people's health from a foundational standpoint and how the things around us are really impacting us. That goes for food and our built environment and all these other things as well. But really the aha moments started coming when we were looking for supplements for our patients because they just wanted to be treated naturally and not pharmaceutically. And it was so hard to find supplements to recommend. And when it comes to our electrolytes, we were running into problems with kind of hidden things inside of electrolyte formulations as far as what fillers they were using, sweeteners they were using, etc. And our adrenals that we'll be releasing at the same time, same problem. We were having trouble with finding high quality supplements, number one, and number two, also just finding the right concentrations for everything. And that's really where the aha moment came, was like, I'm looking at someone spending $2.50 on a serving of electrolytes and they're taking 4, 5, 6 of these in a day. That's just not sustainable. And so our goal was to find some of the cleanest ingredients we could, be the most transparent we could, and really deliver just a high quality product at a cost that's actually affordable for people.
I know that you were saying that there maybe were some electrolytes out there that were maybe a little expensive, but what were some of the times where you did obviously have to prescribe some electrolytes, and what were some of the effects that you saw?
Yeah, so we prescribe electrolytes at the clinic really often, and that kind of bleeds from the reality that we're underhydrated as a whole. And so the whole population really has been fed, in my opinion, a lie that salt is just this big booger bear that's going to just kill you in the long run, right? And I have patients that have really complicated medical conditions, all the way down to my moms and dads that are just running around trying to do daily life. And some of the things that we see when we clinically test these electrolytes is we see improvements in things like brain fog. We see improvements in things like concentration, energy levels, kind of decreases your hunger throughout the day as well. But then for my more medically complicated patients, I mean, this is life-changing for them, right? Where they're, having just disability in their day-to-day life, that just adding in what seems like a ridiculous amount of sodium and magnesium and potassium, Western medicine standards, is just life-changing. And it just totally erases some of their symptoms of feeling lightheaded, not being able to exercise, all those kind of things. And we see improvements across the board.
Wow. Yeah. No, I dove into it a little bit on my own with a podcast I was listening to talking about when you go into ketosis, your body doesn't store salt as much. And in that case, you're no longer in retaining salt. You need to replenish it. And I've even had some friends who have started carnivore, which I know that you're
Yeah.
a proponent of. And I'm a weekend myself. So jumping in on my own, and I've just seen such a big shift on the energy side, which I normally personally wouldn't associate energy with hydration all the time. I would usually think caffeine or energy supplements. But can you speak to that a little bit of just some of the results specifically around when people go into ketosis or in that kind of eating habit?
Yeah, so keto is obviously a big trend right now. And so, kind of important to do this with a doctor for a few reasons. And one of them is to understand this. And this is one of these side effects, for lack of a better term, of ketosis is that you don't retain as much sodium. And so, insulin is really a key role in controlling electrolyte flux inside the kidneys. And whenever you don't have as much insulin around because you're not eating those carbohydrates, whether you're keto or carnivore, or just low carb, depending on your metabolic state, you're going to lose a ton more electrolytes. And when that happens, that really messes with your cellular ability to produce energy because we're messing with some of the electron gradients in the cells that are responsible for doing all of this cellular work. And so this comes down to mitochondrial health and actually energy production at a cellular level. And this is why supplementing with salt is super important. And my clinical experience is that there are some people who really need salt in a short-term basis as they move into ketosis. And then there are some people that need it on an ongoing basis. Don't know why that's different for people, but I'll tell you, I have patients that are highly athletic on a keto diet, and they're taking 6, 7, 8 servings of these supplements a day on top of what they're eating because they're out sweating for an hour or two every day really intensely. And without them, they just feel absolutely terrible. It just drains their energy and they just feel really fatigued. But taking in good electrolyte seems to fix all of that for them.
No, that's huge. And I mean, and you're starting to see it on the market. There's a lot of electrolyte companies out there, whether they be kind of well known to not, but a few come to mind, and that's just because they're more and more prevalent. So I guess my question, you kind of alluded to this earlier, is what makes Citrus Fit kind of electrolytes different from other electrolyte products on the market? And I guess what role as a physician? You're an MD, you've got a clinic that's focusing on holistic medicine. So definitely you get to see it from a lot of different angles. I'd love to hear from you, kind of what made you kind of want to step into the supplement space yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the original statement I made, which was it's hard to find good, clean supplements that aren't going to be just prohibitively expensive. And so when we kind of decided to tip our toes into the supplement world, it really was out of necessity for our patients, right? And that's really what drove us here. I will also just really quickly touch on the fact that there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies now that are taking ownership over these supplement companies, and they just have no interest in your health overall, right? They're interested in selling a product, and that's it. And so what we wanted was, grassroots from the clinic, what we're using, and then applying that out and selling that as a product, right? We don't want, to just become a mega corporation. We're not there to sell a pharmaceutical, and pharmaceutical companies have no business selling any sort of supplement. That's just in complete opposition to what their goal is. And
Mhm.
so what we did is we said, look, this is what we use. We see the results in our clinic, and we wanted to share that with everyone. And so that's why we went to rooted supplements, and that's why we started this. And just really specifically about Citrus Fit and our adrenals is we're going to be 100% transparent. Like, the FDA does not require a supplement company to put everything on their label. We're going to put it all out there. We don't want to hide anything from our customers. We want them to know exactly what they're taking. And so, with that kind of in mind, we took not what is available on the market right now, but kind of the dosings that we needed to get clinical effectiveness and combine them into these single supplement forms, the electrolytes and the adrenals.
That's awesome. Awesome. I guess, one thing that continues to come up is obviously your role as a doctor within your clinic. You and your wife Sarah run Elite Family Medicine or Family Care, and wanted to just chat with you a bit about what made you pivot into running a clinic yourself as opposed to doing the MD route. What kind of drove you guys to do that? I know you alluded to that a bit, but can you speak to that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, really, if you want to make this as succinct as possible, I think the reality is that Western medicine is really fantastic whenever you need it. And I always joke with my patients here at the clinic, I'm not pulling out my, essential oils and supplements whenever you put a chainsaw on your leg. It's just not the right time. And those are the situations when Western medicine really shines. When something's going horribly wrong, Western medicine is an absolute blessing to the world. And I wouldn't say anything other than that. And to speak to that, I actually still work in an ER, right? And so I still go to the ER and work because I believe that that's a wonderful place for Western medicine to thrive. And it's so good at what it does there. But what Western medicine has really fallen short of, and I think that we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years, is that chronic health management is not something that Western medicine is great at. There's, right now an all-time low trust in doctors and all-time low trust in public health in general. And it's because we're seeing huge shifts in what people are able to learn on their own, and they're going out and reading data and they're reading studies. And just like the FDA's recommendation about salt, right? And the CDC's recommendation about salt, we've been told salt is going to give you high blood pressure, it's going to kill you. And yet we have all this new data coming out that says, no, actually, we need a lot more salt. So their recommendation is about 2.5 grams of sodium in a day. And what I usually prescribe for my patients is upwards of 4, 5, 6 grams of sodium in a day. And so if you're looking at some of the other products on the market, the higher concentration products on the market are only giving you about 1 gram at a time. We formulated this to give you about 1.5 grams of sodium at a time, as well as the necessary magnesium and potassium to help that be effective in the body so that we can get more bang for our buck per serving. And so it really just, as a doctor, just evolved from the fact that this is what we clinically needed in our patients.
Wow. So not only are you guys offering, your own version, but this version is actually in a sense more potent per se. Or so I've taken some where you get a packet, right, and you add it to your water bottle and you shake it, and it's really great convenience there. But if I was roofing at one point this last summer. And, when you're on a roof, you're sweating a lot. And so I ended up taking 2 to 3 in the day just to replenish. Sure. And each time I'd have to rip off and do the thing. What is that kind of how you guys are delivering it, or is there another way that you guys are approaching that?
Yeah, so we looked at delivering it in those small package forms, and that's fine and it's convenient. Don't get me wrong, but the reality is, like you, I'm a runner, specifically me, and so I'll go out for a long, hour-long run, and I'm ripping 2 or 3 of these things off at a time after I get back from a run. And so what we decided was to allow it to be dosed however you need it, right? So even like your kids, right? Like you don't need to give them a full packet every time. So what are you going to do? Kind of guesstimate half a packet, throw it in there, and then kind of waste the other half. Or if you're lucky, you could save it, but unlikely with kids. And so we delivered it inside of a tub where you have a scooper that you can just kind of use as little as you need to for whatever situation you're in, because everyone's situation is different. There's not a standard, everyone needs this amount all the time, and every day is different. And so we thought that delivering it in a tub was going to be the most beneficial and effective way for our patients to get it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really great. Okay, so quick question for you. When you look at, say, providing what Citrus Fit offers, are there any specific clinical benefits? So, for example, maybe better hydration. Obviously, we touched on that. How does this touch on, say, energy or recovery or even mental clarity?
Yeah, so there's an old saying in medicine that water follows salt. And that's absolutely true. So especially for patients and customers that are, on a low carb diet or carnivore diet or keto diet, whatever, that's going to be requiring more salt, you really can't rely on water alone. You really need to replace those electrolytes to keep that water where it needs to be in the body. And it kind of goes back to this mitochondrial health that we talked about earlier, where if your electrolyte balance isn't right, then your mitochondria can't function to produce the energy you need. And that bleeds over in different patients, it looks different. Sometimes it's brain fog, sometimes it's fatigue, sometimes it's just I can't do anything and my muscles are cramping, or they're too sore, or I'm not recovering from a workout. It really just depends on how that presents in an individual, but they're all rooted in the same thing, is that water alone's not hydrating you, especially in those low carb states.
Right. And so, I mean, you kind of spoke to this a bit, but for our listeners who maybe they drink too much coffee, I've had to have a season of coming off of coffee at times. And,
Sure.
just to watch my water intake, what are some of the common signs of electrolyte imbalance that most people might overlook?
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it is what a lot of people shake off as kind of modern life, right? And that's the fatigues and the brain fogs. But, it's really incredible to watch in the clinic when you ask questions that most doctors don't ask, like, how much do you drink every day and how thirsty are you all the time?
Mm.
Right? People are, always coming in and I'll ask them, well, how thirsty are you? And they're like, I'm always thirsty. It doesn't matter how much I drink. And it's just the like easy hallmark sign of like, okay, you need electrolytes because you're not actually being hydrated. Your body's telling you you're not hydrated, regardless of how much water you're drinking. And that's just an easy first step.
And some of those results that you've seen in people, what are some of those that you've seen in your
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
we talked about it a little bit earlier, but especially in my patients that have some more complex medical problems, specifically my dysautonomia patients, big doctor words, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Those patients really, it can be life-changing, where they're literally not capable of standing up without feeling like they're going to pass out, or they're going to be so fatigued that they can't even get out of bed and be functional for their family and for their work. And you replace salt and it changes everything for them, really. For my patients that don't have those complicated diseases, it's usually more subtle but still highly impactful, because our modern world is stressful and busy, and we're all, moms and dads and grandparents, and it's a crazy world we're living in. And so whenever anything is off even just a little bit, it's really remarkable to see how much just a little bit of extra salt in your diet can really change kind of your baseline energy output and your baseline mental clarity.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm getting excited. This is good to hear this. Okay, so kind of changing gears a little bit for you, you made the pivot from full MD, although you're still maintaining that, being at the ER and everything. Now you're running a clinic and now you're stepping into a new space. What's been maybe the biggest challenge in this transition from practicing medicine to becoming a supplemental entrepreneur, essentially?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a doctor and I'm not the business person, right? And so luckily I have my amazing wife who's wonderful with business and wonderful with logistics and things like that to help. And she's been really spearheading a lot of the, functional and practical sides of these things. But really the biggest challenge has been finding someone who's going to be transparent with what they're putting in our product so that we can be transparent with our customers, right? So we've partnered with a great producer who's given us every last bit. We have third-party testing certificates for every ingredient within our supplements, so we know exactly what's going in there. And that's really probably been the biggest challenge, was finding someone that we can trust to deliver the quality that we want.
Oh, that's awesome. And obviously there's a lot of people in the supplemental industry. It seems to be changing a bit. Where do you want to take rooted supplements in the next few years?
Yeah, I think we want to just expand rooted supplements to encompass all the things that we're doing at the clinic that we have clinically tested, right? And I know that's just some tagline that you see on a bunch of supplements, but the reality is the things that we're putting out are the things that we're using, that we see the results in our clinic in real time. And so that's really where we want to go. We've got a few other things in the pipeline that we're already thinking of and kind of working on formulating right now, but we're starting with this citrus fit electrolytes and the adrenals, and we're excited to see where those go. But hopefully soon we'll be outside of our local area online, and we'll be putting more products down.
Awesome. Awesome. For those listening that maybe have never tried electrolytes, how should they incorporate Citrus Fit into their daily routine? Like, is there how would you see that?
Yeah, so I'll kind of break it into a few categories. So just kind of your busy mom and dad, just in the morning, it's a great replacement for coffee. I know people have talked a lot recently about intermittent fasting and all that kind of stuff, as well as the keto diet. But if you're going to fast, electrolytes are a great way to kind of sustain your energy, drop your hunger throughout the day if you're trying to do some intermittent fasting. So if you're just that busy mom or dad who's kind of looking at doing some next steps in their health, then easy first thing in the morning, grab an electrolyte, throw it in your water, and go from there. For my highly athletic people and my people that are in the gym a lot or out running a lot, man, post workout is an amazing time for an electrolyte, and it really just speeds up that recovery time where you don't feel quite so dog tired after you've just gotten done doing something intense. And so that's where I would recommend those. And then whenever you're sick and just not wanting to eat and drink a whole lot, I love putting electrolytes in front of my family, specifically, and my patients. I always recommend it when they're just kind of down under the weather. You're just not taking in the water you need, and you're not taking in the food you need. Electrolytes are great. It kind of gives you a hack replacement for getting an IV done.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. And then, where would you say that people could go to find Citrus Fit? So say people are listening to this, they're kind of excited. Where would they go to maybe get an order in or go find that?
Yeah, so right now you can find us at www.rootedsupplements.com. We're also looking at putting a podcast out in the future ourselves, covering a whole range of these topics that we're kind of touching on today. And that's the best place to find us for right now.
Awesome. So going back real quick to fasting, so you can stay in a fasted state while having electrolytes.
Yeah, absolutely. So our electrolytes have no sugars in them. They have no kind of hidden fillers. We don't have any artificial dyes or flavors or anything of the sort. This thing is about as natural as you can make something. And we are, 100% fasting safe. So this is not going to pull you out of a fasted state. Take 2, 3 of these things. It doesn't matter. It's still going to keep your fasted state ongoing.
And, for those that are kind of new to fasting, can you speak real quickly, maybe 30 seconds on the benefits? I've heard even cellular benefits to fasting. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's really interesting is that fasting has been around as long as humans, right? Every major world religion has some sort of fasting built into it. Human civilizations from ancient times obviously fasted whenever food was scarce from necessity. And the new research coming out is really intriguing surrounding not just metabolic health, meaning weight and waistline and those kind of things, but actually there's some benefits that are being looked at from a mitochondrial health standpoint, which is a huge topic, but won't go there. And then as well as some fancy term called autophagy, which essentially is your body's like clean up and tear down process where you're going in and taking care of things that aren't functioning quite 100%. So, looking at data right now, what we're seeing is that, taking on a fasted state, even just missing breakfast has huge benefits.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, had a few more questions for you. So, along that kind of fasting state, what's one wellness tip, if you were to you wish people knew that, that they would practice daily, that would really have a high yield, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so I'm going to steal that question and expand on it a little bit. And it's what I call my pillars of health, right? You can't supplement your way or hack your way through pillars of health. And that is good sleep, good nutrition, and good activity, right? More than anything, like those three things. And then the last pillar, which is also probably the most important, is good mental health space and like spiritual health space, right? Like we can't separate that from your physical health. There's
Mm-hmm.
always a bleed between your physical and mental health and your spiritual health, and you can't separate those things. And so making sure that we're getting good nutrition, whatever diet you're on at the moment, just making sure it's good, well-rounded, we're getting good calories. Calories are not a bad thing. And then making sure that we're good sleep hygiene, going to bed at a reasonable time after the sun goes down, waking up reasonably when the sun's coming up, not watching screens for an hour or two before bed, not drinking caffeine later in the day, those kind of things. And then really like there are some foundational supplements that we kind of look at all the time. electrolytes being one of them, right? Because the modern world, our modern food supply doesn't give us everything we need. We were never made for these foods that we're eating right now. And so there are some foundational supplements, and electrolytes, I think, are one of those foundational supplements.
Awesome. No, that's excellent. I'm taking notes, trying to get healthy. I appreciate that. So as we kind of close out, are there any, kind of final things that you would want people to know just about rooted supplements, electrolytes, Citrus Fit, your adrenal protocol, and would love to hear any kind of last words there.
I think that, the biggest message we have to our customers is you'll always know what's in your supplement, and you're always going to know that this is clinically tested and that this is the things that we use that get good outcomes, and that our goal is to share that with people as much as possible so that people can not see us as doctors more, right? Our goal is your health at its best. And so we never want to sell you something just for fun, never want to sell you something just because it's popular. We're going to sell you the things that we use, that we see good results with.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I so appreciate you and Sarah and your family and just what you guys stand for. Just, this story of you developing rooted supplements out of your clinic from a place of wanting to give to your clinic patients and the community something that you would give to your own children, and for them to know, what they're taking. I so believe in it. I'm so excited about this new season for you guys. And thanks again for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. That's a wrap on our very first episode of the Embolden Co podcast. A huge thank you to Dr. Matt Altman for sharing his story, his expertise, and his passion for health and wellness. If you're ready to try Citrus Fit electrolytes, head over to rootedsupplements.com. The link is in the show notes as well. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and continue to share the stories that will embolden us all. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Stay bold, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next episode.